Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of the College Draft.
Yeah, it is Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft podcast, presented by our awesome YouTube page, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL and DraftKings, now that we're picking these games against the spread. And by we, I mainly mean he, Emory Hunt, the rock star from Football Game Plan. Check him out like I do on Twitter at FBall Game Plan. Football Game Plan on YouTube. It's one of the biggest and best YouTube football channels I'm aware of. And I promise you guys, you go there, you will learn a lot. I know a lot of you love learning more about the sport. Man, you want to hear Emory talk to some coaches? That is where it's at. Football Game Plan on YouTube. I know coaches that go to Football Game Plan on YouTube to learn about football. Multiple coaches. I've told the story before. I go to the College Football Coaches Convention. I'm the one that played in the NFL. I'm on TV all the time. Everybody walks right by me to go to Emory. Right by me to go to Emory, the YouTube star. Football Game Plan on YouTube. And then, of course, the draft guide, which is going to be more critical this year, I think, than any other year we've ever had. Footballgameplan.com/2021 draft guide. That's footballgameplan.com/2021 draft guide. I should probably tell you, I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. I think most of you know that. At Ross Tucker NFL on your social media platforms. Our shows are at Ross Tucker Pod, Twitter and Instagram. Any engagement you can give us means a great deal. It helps with the algorithms and more people seeing the post in the first place and being aware of what we're doing, which includes not only giving you a prospect or two to watch in some of the biggest games, but also telling you what we like against the spread in these college games. Now, might as well. We know a lot of you like to make these games more interesting. Let's do it. Let's make them more interesting. And we got a bunch of rivalry games this week, Emory, which should be fun. It's such a weird year, such a weird season. This is usually like the last week of the year. And then next week's like conference championships. Meanwhile, this is like week 2 for the Pac-12. It's literally week 4 for the MAC. I'm actually doing, Emory, on Saturday, the MAC game of the year. Kent State at UB. They're both undefeated, 3-0. They both have slaughtered their teams. They both, by the way, combined are averaging just under 100 points a game. Kent State's like 54, and Buffalo's like UB's like 44. It's going to be that game, and there's a lot of pro prospects in that game, especially for UB. They're Malcolm Kuntz, the D end, the offensive tackle, Owasika, Jarrett Patterson, the running back. UB's kind of loaded, by the way, Emory, with top prospects.
Absolutely. Patterson is one of my favorite backs to watch, too. And he's a junior, so technically he can go back if he wants to. But, man, he's tremendous. And I like how Dustin Crum, the quarterback at Kent State, has progressed this year. Last year, I thought he was kind of the Mid-American Conference version of Tebow, as far as like more runner and just a safe thrower. But now you're seeing him be a little bit more aggressive and going downfield. And he's looked better. I think he's dropped some weight too, so he's looking a little bit more like a traditional quarterback, and not just a big burly H-back type. But he's improved his passing. The offense is humming, man, and it's going to be a fantastic game.
You know, I watched yesterday morning their game against Akron, the coaches tape.
Mm-hmm.
He completed his first 17 passes for 300 yards.
Wow!
I mean, he's just like. It's almost strange when there's an incompletion. I talked to him yesterday, Emory, on the production meeting with Dustin Crum, the quarterback at Kent State. I said, Dustin, are you emotionally devastated anytime you actually throw an incompletion? It's right. Impressive. So that's noon, CBS Sports Network on Saturday. If you want to see your boy, DVR it, whatever you want to do. Really, really looking forward to that one. Should be a fantastic football game between those two teams and a bunch of prospects. But we also have games, Emory, like Alabama and Auburn. Alabama is laying 24.5 points. Gosh, that seems like a lot of points for an Iron Bowl matchup. Let's start with Auburn D lineman Tyrone Truesdell.
You talk about a one-gap penetrator. And in this era of spread offenses and spread run games, the best way to stop the run is that quick interior pressure. And he's a guy that explodes into the offensive lineman's chest and able to walk him back. It's almost like, a practice sled drill where he's like lock and drive. And that's what he does with offensive linemen. So that's going to be critical in this game. And I think that's an excellent part of his game. He's more of a run stopper, who can pressure because he's getting so much penetration, but how strong he is at the point of attack and how quickly he gets off the football makes him a prospect. I know he's going to the Senior Bowl as well. So he definitely has pro level game. He's a, well-built, well put together defensive tackle. He's not one of those guys that overextends and gets off balance. He's playing with good leverage. And that's why he's such a, I think dominant force on the inside.
He's going to be going against, I love when you do this. I've told you this before. I love when you give matchups because he's going to be going against a bunch Alabama offensive lineman Landon Dickerson. So I love when you give a prospect on both sides of the ball that goes against each other so that when, our listeners, some of whom are here just to get your picks against the spread, some of whom actually like the matchups and breaking it down and watching it, they can watch Dickerson against Truesdell on Saturday.
Now, Dickerson is one of the best run blockers in college football, so that's why I chose that matchup. He's a tremendous pro prospect in his own right, and you talk about a guy that's consistent, and that's a big reason why Najee Harris has the success he has. Big reason why you don't see teams explode up the middle as far as pressuring Mac Jones is concerned, because he's such a technically sound player, can play center or guard. But in the run game, in this particular matchup, him versus Truesdell is going to be a tremendous battle back and forth. And if he can quickly get movement or at least stalemate to where Truesdell doesn't get that quick penetration, that's a win for him. And so I'm going to be interested to see how he dominates a dominant player, because if he can win that matchup, all he can do, in my opinion, in my eyes, in this game is continuously push his stock upwards in the draft in April with how he handles this matchup on the inside.
All right. So I mentioned earlier, Emory, the Alabama Crimson Tide are laying 24.5 big points. Which way are you going on this?
Last week I was all over Kentucky plus 30, and going through the first quarter, going through midway to the second quarter, even going down to the last 3 minutes in the second quarter, I was looking kind of right. It was like, you know what? Kentucky's defense is going to hold up, and Alabama's going to win probably like 27-3 or something like that. And they just opened up a whole can of what on Kentucky and just blew that game open. So shocked when you see 24.5 initially, but then you think, man, Alabama is scoring 40 to 45 points a game. So they're going to get their 40 against Auburn. It's going to be a question whether or not Auburn can get 25 or 30. I don't see that happening, so I'm laying the points with Alabama straight up.
Love it. All right. Hey, I don't like giving that many points. That makes me uneasy, especially in a rivalry matchup. But I totally get it. Is Auburn really that bad?
They're not that bad, man, because they finally figured out, how to work their offense and make their offense work for them. And it took them a while. But defensively, too, I thought they started to answer the call a little bit. But what concerned me last week, even though it ended up not mattering as much, Tennessee still ran really well against that front. Gray had over 100-something yards rushing. The passing game is what killed Tennessee. Now, we know Alabama can run and throw the football really well. So defensively, there's still some questions about Auburn. So it made what we saw against LSU an anomaly and not a sign of things to come. So when you look at this matchup with this explosive offense and their ability to do well on both ends of offense, it could potentially be a problem for Auburn.
So I'm going to go the other way. I'll take Auburn in the points. It's a rivalry game. I mean, 24.5. Come on, Auburn. You can't lose by that much. Let's get to Oregon and Oregon State. You love running backs, dude.
Love
you
them.
love running backs. And you should. That's what you played. What kind of back were you, Emory?
I was probably, you know what? People ask that, and I will always throw out this name because it kind of fit how I was. It was Sean Green. Remember him? At play with.
Oh, yeah. For the Jets from Iowa.
Yeah. But from Iowa, I had really good hands.
You were a thick, big boy power guy?
Power guy, like that, and because I was always about between 215 and 220. So that was about, like 225, between 225 and 230.
That's what you weigh right now?
Right now. And I'm a leaner now than I was bulkier then and weighed less. I mean, weighed more. I weighed more, less when I was bulkier, but I weighed more now and I'm leaner.
Hold on a second. Emory, how tall are you?
5'9.5", actually. Gotta get that half in there.
So, hold on a second. Right now, you weigh between 225 and 230?
Yep.
Dude, I would have guessed you were like 205.
It blows my mind because, again, I am leaner now than I was when I played.
You must have a big lower body.
My legs are thick, yeah, and calves are like MJD. Is this so I have a thick lower body and a bigger upper body. I just hide it well. Like I'm a solid dude.
Sean Green. I love that. Now I got that visual image. All right, let's get to these running backs. Emory, I can't believe I never asked that before. I've known you for like 10 years. All right. Oregon State. The Beavers are getting 13.5 points. Couple running backs. Oregon's running back is CJ Verdell.
And he reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara in the fact that he's explosive. He can do it all. In the passing game, he's just not a standard swing, screen, flare, flat receiver. He can be a downfield threat. In the run game, he's quick to, through, and past the hole. That's how explosive he is. Now, I do wish he could be a little bit more patient pre-line of scrimmage, and that's something that you could work on. Even if it's just about taking a yard step back. Mostly they teach you. Nowadays with everybody side by side with these quarterbacks, you're 5 yards deep. But back in the day, 7 yards was the standard, and that gave you time to let stuff set up front. So his patience can be developed with him just taking a yard back and stepping back a little bit more and letting it play out a little bit. So I think that's one area where he can grow. But I don't think people give him enough credit for being as talented as the runner he is. And so I'm excited to see him go up against this Oregon State defense. We already talked about that linebacker, Hamilcar Rashed, but Oregon has a chance to really run the football here against Oregon State, and Verdell is one of the best in the country that we're going to talk a lot about when draft time comes. Is people going to start just like how we broke the news that Michael Carter was a really good back in the summer, and now everybody's talking about Michael Carter at North Carolina, and now he has a Senior Bowl invite. So we always are ahead of the game here on the Ross Tucker College Draft podcast, and people will start to talk about Verdell too later on in this whole process.
I love it. How about Oregon State's running back Jamar Jefferson?
Liked him coming out of high school and followed him in high school because you don't normally see backs this talented go to Oregon State, and I was like, wow, they got themselves a damn good back, and he went off as a freshman. He was their star. Was banged up last year. He's back healthy now and is going off again. So he's a junior tailback that has tremendous vision, speed. He runs with that purposeful power. So he's powering through arm tackles, kind of like how you see the back at Georgia do. The guy that's there now, number 3. What's his name? Zamir White. How you see Zamir White just kind of like run through arm tackles. That's Jamar Jefferson. But he also has breakaway speed. So if they're going to have an opportunity to win this game, it's going to be on the backs of Jefferson doing what he did last week in their win versus Cal.
All right, so Oregon State is getting 13.5 points on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Who do you like, Emory?
Oregon. Oregon can run the heck out of the football, both quarterback and running back. And yeah, their offensive line is different, and they're a little bit banged up on defense. However, This is, like you said, this is a rivalry game, so they know they want to stick it to Oregon State, and they just are the better team. And they still have, they're eyeing the college football playoffs, so they have to win this game and have to win it in an impressive fashion. So I'm laying those points with Oregon.
Got it. I'm kind of with you on that. I know it's a rivalry game, but I think Oregon probably covers in that one. Speaking of covering, you got to get all over this Thanksgiving DraftKings Sportsbook offer. This is crazy. They're giving you a chance to double your money if either Baltimore or Pittsburgh scores a touchdown in Thursday night's game. Yeah, you heard me right. All it takes for you to double your money is one touchdown. One touchdown in the game, you double your money. I don't know what the max is, but put the max. There's going to be a touchdown in that game. Put the max in that they let you do and get the free money. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Ross when you sign up to get this can't-miss offer. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you the chance to double your money if either Pittsburgh or Baltimore score a touchdown in Thursday night's game. That's right. All it takes is one touchdown and you double your money when you use promo code Ross during sign-up. Limited time, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, PA only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's get to our third game. Loving today's show, by the way. Pitt and Clemson, a couple quarterbacks. By the way, another exactly 24.5-point spread, just like Auburn, Alabama. Pitt coming off a big win over Virginia Tech. They got Kenny Pickett back in the lineup, and he's the Pitt Panther you want to talk about.
Yeah, I just like how he plays, man. I'm a big fan of his game. Whether it translates to pro success or not, I just like watching him play because he has a gunslinger mentality. Like, no one bad play frustrates him. It's just like, hey, all right, well, just going to get out there and just keep throwing it. And that has been his calling card since he's been at Pitt. He's athletic enough to get out the pocket and throw on a run. He throws well on the run. He's a guy that's looking to make big plays in the passing game every time. He's not trying to take the safe route. If he can live in that intermediate area, that's where he can thrive. That's where he's going to have success with the occasional deep ball down the field. His mobility allows you to get him out on sprint outs and boots and waggles, all those things like that. So he has all the requisite talent. He reminds me a lot of like how Matt Hasselbeck played the game, just kind of like a quick strike, intermediate slants, kind of good mobility, just had the offense just moving. And I think that's what you're going to see. That's what you see in Pickett, and I think that's what Pitt is hoping they have against Clemson.
It's an interesting comparison there with Matt Hasselbeck. I like that. I love when you give an NFL guy so I can get some type of vision in my head. Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, I can't remember the last time he played at this point. It seems like it's been forever. I know we've talked about him before. Your thoughts on Lawrence? Everybody knows how good he is. Maybe as much as anything, what you think he needs to improve on?
Well, I just think that I don't want to see him hold the football. I think he does take a little bit of unnecessary shots because he's holding the ball a little bit too long, trying to make that perfect throw. It's almost Carson Wentz-like in that regard where he sees it, just let it rip, man. And therefore you can save yourself an unnecessary hit in the midsection or around your legs. And, sometimes he tries to be a little bit too heroic, which can get him into trouble. And in this game, we know Pitt's defensive line can really get after it, and they're going to try to find ways to pressure him. And you just want to see how his body responds to coming back from COVID. We saw Cam Newton kind of have to use 2 weeks to shake it off. So we'll see how, Lawrence responds. So I'm more interested in seeing in this game more than, like you said, we know about his talent. We know what he can do well. Just want to see how he's able to overcome that layoff coming off COVID. And also if he can, quicken up that release and get rid of that football a little bit quicker.
Yeah, that will be that's a good observation, I think, Emory. And I think that's vitally, vitally important is that you get rid of the ball. I don't know what's going on with Carson Wentz, but he's uncomfortable. I saw a stat where he leads the NFL in interceptions, fumbles, and sacks.
Yikes.
That's a heck of a trio there for Wentz. All right. So for Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers, they're laying 24.5 points, Emory. I am very curious to see which way you go on this one.
Listen, I know Pitt did what they had to do against Virginia Tech, and I know they did what they had to do against, NC State. But you can't trust this Pitt team week to week because we saw them go out there and lay an egg against Miami. We've seen them lay eggs before, and Pitt does a good job of playing Pitt football. I think I told you the story before where I went out to Pitt, North Carolina last year. Pitt was up big, and I had to get to Huntington, West Virginia the next day for Marshall and Louisiana Tech. So I left the stadium at the third quarter. By the time I make my way downtown Pitt to my hotel, overtime. I'm like, yo, what the hell happened from the time I left the stadium to the hotel? Pitt happened. That's what happened. So I'm not trusting Pitt here. I'm laying those points with Clemson.
Got it. Okay. I think I'm going to go the other way. 24.5 is just too many for me, bro. It's just I can handle the 13.5 Oregon State. 24.5, I just don't see Pitt getting embarrassed like that. I'll take Pitt and the points. All right, our final game, Emory. It's North Texas against UTSA. UTSA laying 3.5 points. And surprise, surprise, North Texas has a running back you want to talk about.
DeAndre Torrey. What I like about him is that he's the, new age position prototype, right? You're Naheem Hines type. He's explosive. He can beat you in a multitude of ways. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He's a good downfield threat in the receiving game. He's a tremendous returnman. He's a spot starter at running back. When I say that, I'm talking about a guy that doesn't need volume. So he can thrive off 6 carries a game in your offense. Even though they give him the football a lot at North Texas, he's tremendous in that regard. But I'm talking about projecting him to the pro level. He can thrive with 6 carries a game. He can thrive with 3 receptions a game. You give him 9 total touches. You're helping out your offense and what he brings to the table. And that's what I like about this game, because even though the running back on the other side, Sincere McCormick, for about a good 6 weeks of the season, he was the leading rusher in the country before the guy at Iowa State just went bananas. So we're going to see 2 good running backs, but McCormick is a freshman or a sophomore, I believe. But Torrey's a senior and has been consistent every year at North Texas. And if they're going to win, they're going to need him to have his best day against a very good defense in UTSA.
Yeah, UTSA's having a nice year. That was a big win for Army when they beat UTSA. I don't know if you saw, Emory, I got to ask you, did you see any of that Georgia Southern?
I did. I wanted to ask you about Shia Wertz and what you thought about their offense in Georgia Southern, how they work their triple option with their passing game.
Well, first of all, Georgia Southern's offense is really fun to study on tape. It is, highly entertaining. It's basically, for people who aren't familiar, they run like the option out of shotgun. It's like a triple option out of the shotgun. It's a really cool, almost like a hybrid zone read option offense. It's really fun to watch, and Wirtz does a good job of it. But for people, look, I know some of you are now listening to the podcast because you like that Emory and I are making picks against the spread. Emory, 2 minutes and 7 seconds left in the game. Okay, I got to tell you this quick story. Army gets in. They're up 28-27. Army picks off the backup quarterback. Wirtz was hurt. Mm-hmm. Okay, 2 minutes and 7 seconds. So the play clock's 40 seconds. So they can take 3 knees, and there would just be 7 seconds left over, depending on how many seconds they take per knee, right?
Right.
So first down, they take a quick knee, and the coach, Jeff Monken, does a great job, is like, you got to take more time. Like, we don't want to have to kick it, punt it to them. Like, we don't want there to be any time left on the clock. So take more time on second down. So he takes more time on second down, and they get 2 holding penalties while they're taking a knee, which stops the clock. So then they have to punt it at the end. They have to punt it to Georgia Southern, who gets down in the field goal range, 30-yard line, with 22 seconds left. They run one more play. It's a quarterback draw. And Army kind of holds him up for like 3 or 4 seconds, and he's fighting for more yards. Then they take him down. The Army guys all like lay on top of him. They uncover. by the time they set the ball and the guy hits the ground with the spike, there it goes from 1 to 0 on the clock. Clock is out. All Georgia Southern was already in field goal range.
Wow.
They already tried a 40-point field goal. So both teams blew the end of the game royally. I mean, and I had a lot of people tweeting me at Ross Tucker NFL that had bets on the game. I mean, that was, you'll almost never ever, like, both coaches felt sick, I think, after the game. And we even had to do instant replay, Emory, because right when the ball hit, it said 1, and then it was like a 100th of a second. And I think in real time, they say there's no more time because in real time you have to see it spike and then you hit the button. Like it's not instantaneous.
Right.
So anyway, it was crazy.
It was like that Cincinnati game where Luke Fickle almost blew that one, and it was a bad beat. Like, score the points. So therefore, it's Cincinnati minus 5.5 hits.
UTSA linebacker Jamal Ligon.
Freshman dude. Now, again, just throw him out there so people can get familiar with the name. Freshman dude that lives behind the line of scrimmage, and he has really thickened out. He got to UTSA at about 220 pounds, 219 pounds. He is 245 now, and good weight, and moves well. He's athletic. He plays the run really well. He is going to be a tremendous player. He leads their team, I believe, in TFLs and tackles, but he's a guy that helps out their back end, which is pretty good. He's so disruptive, and if he's having a great game, UTSA is winning this game outright.
UTSA laying 3.5 points. Who do you like?
UTSA defense and run game all the way. I trust their defense more than North Texas.
Yeah, I'll take UTSA as well. I typically don't like laying 3.5. They put all these 3.5, 24.5 right at like a key number and then the hook. But I'm going to take UTSA as well. That'll do it for this week's College Draft Podcast. Make sure, please, that you are checking out Emory on social at FBall Game Plan, Football Game Plan on YouTube, and most importantly, the best draft guide available, footballgameplan.com/2021 draft guide. That is the key. We already did the Ross Tucker Football Podcast today, a Power Rankings Tuesday. We're doing Even Money Podcast today. We're doing Fantasy Feast today. One of the biggest days in Ross Tucker Podcast Network history because I'm traveling tomorrow to Detroit for Texans Lions. So we're getting a lot of it done today. So listen to them, download, subscribe. We appreciate it. The keg is kicked. We're all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.